The doctor's voice sounded far away as Matteo A. Johansson read the last page of the file. He had looked at many of these papers before. They were usually neat, cold, and all the same. But this one was different. He stopped reading. In the bottom corner of Ela Davies' paper, there was one sentence that made the room feel quiet. Patient has never been sexually active. The doctor kept talking, saying things about baby making, medicine, and plans. Ela sat up straight. Her hands were in her lap, and her eyes were looking ahead like she was wearing invisible armor. Matteo didn't speak. He didn't move. He just held the folder tightly and looked at her. He wasn't judging her, but his eyes showed something else. The doctor kept talking. Because it's her first time, we'll need to stop. That one word was quiet but strong. Everyone stopped talking. The room froze. Isla turned a little toward Matteo, but she didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Her jaw was tight and her eyes were sharp. Matteo closed the folder. Cancel the procedure, he told the doctor. The doctor looked confused. Sir, you heard me. We're not going forward, but everything is ready. Her test results are perfect. I said stop. Ela took a deep breath, but she didn't show how she felt. Her voice was calm and soft. So this means I can't do it? Matteo looked at her closely now. You're a virgin? He asked. He wasn't angry. It was just a question. Yes, Ela said. Does that change things, Mr. Johansson? Matteo didn't speak right away. He stood up slowly. His chair made a soft noise. Then he looked at the doctor. Leave the room, he said. All of you. The nurse and technician looked unsure, but they left. Isla stayed still, her chin high. She wasn't going to explain herself. Matteo stood tall, quiet, and calm. If this makes you uncomfortable, Isla said, just say so. I don't want pity. He looked at her for a long time. Then he said, I'm not the kind of man who takes a woman's first experience when she's doing it out of pain or worry. Ela raised her eyebrows a little. So you're walking away? No, he said. I'm doing what I should have done the moment I read your file. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a thick envelope, and placed it on the table. Ela didn't touch it. What is that? $50,000, he said. It's for your mom's first treatment. I'll pay for the rest too. Isla blinked slowly. You're canceling the baby plan but still paying everything? He nodded. Why? She asked. He said, because no woman should have to give away something that matters so much just to save someone else. Isla stepped back a little. The air felt different now. This isn't charity, she said. No, he answered kindly. It's respect. You don't even know me, she said. No, but I know enough, he replied. I won't be the man who takes something special from you just because it's in a contract. She went quiet. Her voice was soft now. And if I wanted to go through with it, he stepped closer and said, I'd still say no, because you shouldn't have to give this up to save someone else. They looked at each other. It was quiet but strong. For a moment, Isla didn't feel like just another name on a paper. She felt seen. Now, stop and think for a second. What would you do if a man stopped everything? Not because he didn't want you, but because he didn't want to take something you weren't giving freely? What if he canceled a deal worth $500,000 just to protect something you had saved all your life? Would you trust him? Would you walk away? Or would that moment, the kind that's soft and strong at the same time, make you feel love in a way you never had before? If you like this story, please press the like button. It helps more people find stories like this. Write a comment too. What would you do if you were Isla? Walk away? Accept help? Or talk back to the man who finally saw your true worth? Don't forget to subscribe to Fiction of Peace. Here, we don't just tell love stories. We tell stories that help you feel, think, and maybe even heal. Now, let's go back to the moment that changed Isla's life forever. The envelope was on the table. It felt like it had power in it. Isla looked at it, but she was really looking at Matteo. Matteo A. Johansson, the man who canceled the deal with just a sentence. He stood there in fancy shoes, his hands at his sides, no pride in his eyes, just something real, something strong. He didn't move. She didn't either. The air wasn't filled with stress. It was filled with choice. There were no speeches, no smooth words, no papers to sign. Just a moment where two very different people stood on the edge of something they couldn't name. And in that quiet space, something changed. Not in the room, but inside her. She didn't know what he wanted, but for the first time in a long time, she believed him, even though he said nothing. Isla Davy was only 8 years old when the front door slammed shut for the last time. Her father didn't shout or leave a letter. He just disappeared. She never saw him again. They lived in Brownsville, Brooklyn. Not the shiny part, but the tough part, where broken glass was in the streets and sirens were heard every night. Her mom, Viola, kept their life going with tired hands and quiet strength. She cleaned rich people's homes. She wore neat church shoes even if the bottoms had holes. Isla remembered her mom coughing while cleaning. At first, it was just a small cough. But it got worse. By the time Isla turned 28, her mom was told she had stage 3 lung cancer. They had no health insurance, no savings, just a big bill for treatments. Isla didn't cry. She put her dreams away and got to work. Isla had always been quiet, not because she didn't have something to say, but because she knew sometimes words didn't change anything. Her art teacher in high school loved her drawings. She even got a full scholarship to a fancy art school. For a while, she thought art would be her way out. She wanted to paint pictures for music albums or even children's books. But then her mom collapsed in the hallway. She left art school, packed her paints, and started working jobs. In the morning, she answered phones at a dentist's office. At night, she moved heavy boxes in a warehouse. On weekends, she mopped floors where her mom used to clean. Rent was still hard. The fridge was often empty. But she didn't complain. No one was going to save them. Not before, not now. And Isla had learned that staying alive meant giving things up. She didn't ask for help. Not because she was proud, but because pity has a smell. And she had smelled it too many times. Since she was 10, she saw how people looked at her mom, like someone who should say thank you for scraps. Isla promised herself she'd never be seen that way. So she made rules for herself. Don't be weak. Don't be pitied. Don't be used. She followed those rules every day. She turned down help that came with strings. She walked away from men who only saw her body and not her heart. Love? Maybe one day, but only from someone who could stand beside her and truly see her. She had chances. Some were kind, some were handsome, but none were strong enough for a woman like her. She knew what she was worth, and she'd rather eat beans in silence than let someone buy her piece by piece. Then came a call on a Tuesday. A quiet woman from a surrogacy company said they got Isla's application. They were moving fast. The person who wanted a baby was rich and secret. The pay? $500,000. Isla stayed calm. She wrote down the date and place, then sat in silence. This wasn't a choice made in sadness. She had thought hard. The math added up. Her mom's care, a better apartment, a future without 3 jobs, but it still made her sad. The one thing she had protected all her life, her body. Her first time, her power was now just paper, needles, and rules. She wasn't ashamed, but she was angry at the world, a world where a strong black woman had to sell her own body to help her mom live. So she made her rules. No pity, no personal talks, no stories, just the baby, the money, and peace. But peace didn't come into the room that day. A man did, with a nice shirt and stormy eyes. And that was when the real story began. Matteo Johansson didn't grow up rich. He grew up on the 6th floor in a building in the South Bronx. His mom, Esperanza, raised him alone. She cleaned buildings and braided hair on weekends. His dad, a Swedish builder. He left when she said she was pregnant. He gave her an envelope and walked away. Matteo never forgot. His mom taught him, speak clearly, never bow your head. Matteo learned how to fix things, how to protect himself, and how to work hard. He read books by flashlight. He never stopped learning. At 16, he was already smarter than his neighborhood. His test scores were great. His college letters didn't ask for help, they made people take notice. He got into Princeton with a full scholarship. He studied hard. At 23, he had big job offers but said no. He started his own company instead. His first invention helped elevators. Within 5 years, everyone was talking about him. He became a billionaire by age 38, but he still came home to silence. He had been engaged 3 times. The first woman liked being famous more than she liked him. The second flirted with rich men. The third, that one broke his heart the most. She was kind. She was soft. Isla met Mateo's mother and helped plan her 60th birthday. Mateo thought he had finally found someone who truly liked him. But one day, he heard her talking on the phone, making plans to use his last name for a business she hadn't earned. That night, he ended the relationship quietly and firmly. After that, Mateo stopped looking for love. He went to fancy events, smiled for cameras, and spent time with women chosen by his public team. But none of it felt real. Mateo had built his whole life and business by himself. But when it came to love, he never found the truth. He wanted more than money and buildings with his name. He wanted a child to love and tell the truth to, not raise with secrets. After 3 broken engagements, Mateo tried to adopt a child. But it was hard. The rules were tough, and people judged him. So he decided to use a surrogate, a woman who could carry the baby for him. It felt safe and simple. No love, no heartbreak. Then he saw Isla Davies' file. She had no health problems, and her body and mind were perfect for surrogacy. But one thing surprised him. It said she had never been sexually active. He read that part twice. When Isla came into the office, he saw how calm and strong she was. He understood that this note wasn't just information. It meant she had strong values. Mateo wanted a baby, but he wasn't ready to feel something real. Still, here she was. Isla sat in the quiet room. The floors were shiny, and the windows showed buildings. She wore her best clothes, one she got from a charity. Mateo sat across from her. He was tall and looked powerful but very quiet. The doctor began to talk about the process. He said Isla's health looked great and everything was ready. Then he said, first-time status, because Isla had never done anything sexual before. That changed everything. Mateo couldn't stop thinking about that line in the file. As the doctor talked more, a nurse prepared tools. A helper came over and gave Isla a form to sign. But Mateo raised his hand and said, everyone stopped. We're not moving forward, he said. Isla looked shocked. Why? This isn't a mistake. I know, Mateo said. Then why stop, she asked. He said softly, because I read everything, and that part matters. Isla sat up straighter. You already knew. The agency told you. So why now? Do you think I'm weak? No, Mateo said. I think you're valuable. That's not your choice, Isla said. He stepped a little closer. I'm not judging you. I just want to understand. Why choose to do this now after saving something so personal for so long? Isla answered quickly. Because my mom is very sick. I have nothing else to sell. Mateo breathed deeply. I don't want this to take something from you that you can't get back. Isla asked, what do you think you're protecting me from? Myself, he said, and the part of me that does deals without thinking about the cost. Isla stood up. She was calm and strong. You think I need saving? You're not the first rich man to think feeling uncomfortable means caring. Mateo stood still. That's not what this is. Then what? You feel bad because I don't fit your idea of a perfect surrogate? No, he said. You do fit. You're strong. That's not an answer. I know what I'm offering. I know the risks. What I don't know is why you suddenly care. Because I didn't expect to feel like I was taking something from you. She crossed her arms. You were paying for it. That's how this works, right? No, Mateo said. That's how it was. I didn't come here to be changed by a stranger. And I didn't come here to feel like one, he replied. He looked at her seriously. I've made huge business deals without blinking, but right now I care more about you being okay. Isla stared at him. She wanted to see if he was lying. He wasn't. If you stop this, She said, "My mom won't get help, and I'll lose my home." "That's why I already paid her hospital bill," he said. Her eyes widened. "You did that without asking me." "Because I won't let you hurt yourself to save someone else." She crossed her arms again, but softer this time. "You don't get to choose what I sacrifice." "I know. Then why get involved at all?" "Because I spent my life being in control," he said, "and you're the first person who made me ask if I should be." Isla looked at him but didn't say anything. Then she left the room, taking the stairs quickly. Her hands were sweaty, her throat hurt, but her face stayed calm. She didn't think she'd see him again. But 5 minutes later, he was there, outside the door, holding an envelope. "What's that?" she asked. "The first payment for your mom's hospital." She didn't take it. "You followed me to give me money?" "No," he said. "I didn't want this to end in silence." "You think that makes it better?" "No, but it makes it honest." She didn't take the envelope yet. "You feel guilty?" "No, I feel responsible. That's different." "So this is your idea of helping? Giving money and leaving?" "I'm not leaving. You canceled the procedure." "I canceled the part where you gave up something you didn't owe me." She gave a dry laugh. "You think this is about purity?" "No, it's about dignity." That surprised her. He stepped a little closer. "You came into that room ready to give something personal, not because you were forced, but because love made you do it. I respect that." She swallowed, but looked him in the eye. "This isn't charity," he added. "It's respect." She looked at the envelope again. "Men like you expect thanks. You don't owe me anything, not a thank you, not a talk." "Then why do this?" "Because you came ready to bleed, and I didn't want you to." She took the envelope with steady hands. She didn't open it. Mateo didn't speak. "I thought you just signed the contract, get your child, and leave," she said. "I would have," he said, "if you were someone else." "Then what am I?" He paused, uncomfortable, in the best way. She breathed out. "Men look at me like a problem or a solution. You looked at me like a person." "That won't change," he said. "It should. You don't know me. That's not a reason to walk away." "It is a reason not to trust this." "Fair," he nodded, "but I'm not here to fix you." "Then why stay?" "Because I saw you, and I couldn't pretend I didn't." She didn't let her guard down, but something softened. She asked, "So I can pretend this never happened?" He nodded. "If you want. And if I don't know what I want, then I'll wait." "Wait for what?" "For what comes next." She didn't answer. She turned toward the stairs, but didn't leave yet. He stepped back. "I won't contact you. No pressure." "Then why the envelope?" "Because I don't let someone suffer me in silence." That hit her hard. He turned and walked away. No drama, just a quiet goodbye. But as the door closed, Isla felt something new in her heart. Not fear, not anger, but hope. Isla never gave him her address, but she wasn't surprised when Mateo found it. One Thursday, he came to her door. No driver, no fancy clothes. He just said through the buzzer, "It's me. 10 minutes. That's all." She let him in. She told herself it was curiosity. Mateo walked into Islate's small 2-bedroom apartment. He didn't say anything funny or mean about the place. He just looked around quietly, like it was a special place. The kitchen smelled like lavender soap and rice. Mateo stood in the hallway, holding a small bunch of flowers in brown paper. His coat was wet from the rain. He didn't look around to judge. It looked like he was trying to remember everything. Islate pointed to the back bedroom. "She's awake," she said, "but some days are better than others." Mateo nodded and put the flowers on the counter. "I won't stay long." Islate opened the door. Inside, her mom, Viola, was resting against pillows. She had a scarf around her shoulders and a small tube helping her breathe. Her eyes were bright and sharp. When Islate walked in, Viola raised her eyebrows. "You brought company?" Mateo stepped in. "Only if you want visitors, ma'am." Viola blinked and gave a small smile. "You the man who paid my hospital bill?" "I helped a little," Mateo said. "You did the rest by staying strong." Viola laughed softly. It was quiet but real. Islate watched as Mateo pulled up a chair and sat next to Viola. He didn't act like he was showing off. He sat like someone who wanted to listen. "What's your story?" he asked gently. Viola tilted her head. "You really want to know?" "Yes, ma'am." So Viola told him. She talked about growing up in Georgia, moving to New York with only a suitcase and a baby, raising Eilate with love. She didn't try to make it sound pretty, she just told it like it was, and Mateo listened the whole time. He never interrupted. From the kitchen, Islate leaned on the doorway. She thought Mateo would be polite, maybe even nice. But this was different. He didn't talk about his work. He wasn't pretending to care. He really wanted to know. He asked Viouse to read to Islate about a recipe Islate always mentioned, about what made her happy before she got sick. Viola answered every question. She wasn't nervous. She was just a mom talking to someone who made the room feel better. Islate felt strange. Men like Mateo didn't visit small apartments. They didn't ask deep questions. But Mateo was sitting close to her mom, letting her tease him about not knowing how to clean greens. He didn't mind. When he laughed, it wasn't loud. When he looked at Viola, it wasn't with pity. And when he looked at Islate, it wasn't to get her approval. It was like he was thankful. Something in Islate shifted, something small but real. When Viola got tired and her breathing slowed, Islate walked Mateo to the kitchen. She thought he would say goodbye and leave. But he picked up the flowers, unwrapped them, and put them in an old glass vase. He didn't look at her. He just said, "You have her laugh, you know." Islate crossed her arms. She didn't answer. He looked at her kindly. "She's the kind of woman who changes the world. Now I see where you get it." Islate tried to smile, but it didn't come out right. She had too many feelings. "You don't have to charm her," she said. "She's not the one you need to impress." "I'm not trying to impress anyone," Mateo said. "Then why are you here?" "To see you. Not just in the clinic or in a file. The real you." She didn't say anything, but when he walked to the door, she said softly, "You can come back if she asks." He nodded once and left. The silence he left behind didn't feel empty. It felt warm. The rain outside made the streets shine like gold and white. Islate stood outside a tall building, her hair wet, her heart nervous. She hadn't called Mateo. She didn't plan to come. She just came. When the man at the front desk called upstairs, her hands were shaking. Not from the cold. Mateo opened the door himself. He was wearing gray sweatpants, a black t-shirt, and no shoes. He didn't look surprised. He just stood still, looking at her like a storm had brought her to his door. "I shouldn't be here," she said. "I know," he said. "I told myself I wouldn't let people get close again." She lifted her chin. "But now, I just want to forget the world for one night." He didn't say anything. He just stepped aside and let her in. The air inside was warm, no music. It smelled like clean wood. Islate took off her wet shoes and stood in the hallway. She didn't walk in all the way. She looked at the floor to calm herself. Mateo leaned on the wall nearby, arms crossed. "I don't do this," she said. "Show up without calling, feeling messy." "You're not messy," he said. She gave a small laugh. "You don't know how hard it is for me to want someone like you." He frowned. "Why me?" "Because you don't need me. That makes me wonder if you really see me, or if I'm just a kind act to make you feel good." Mateo stepped closer, slow and gentle. "I didn't ask you to come here. I know. I didn't make promises. I know that too." He looked at her carefully. "Then why are you here, Islate?" Her voice cracked. "Because I can't stop thinking about how you looked at me, like I wasn't a job, like I was real." "You are." She took a step closer. "I'm scared to want something kind because I've never had it." Mateo didn't reach out yet. He waited like he didn't want to scare her. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "I know that," she whispered. "Then tell me what you want." Islate took a deep breath. "I want to feel okay, wanting something soft." That was all he needed. He walked toward her and held out his hand, not grabbing, just offering. She put her hand in his, and for the first time, letting someone hold her didn't feel like giving up. It felt like a choice. He led her to the bedroom. She stood by the bed, heart beating fast. "If you touch me," she said, "it can't be because you feel sorry or want to look good. It has to be real." "It is," he said. Easlate breathed out. He reached for her shirt, touched her shoulders and arms. She didn't pull away. He kissed her forehead, her cheek, and then waited near her lips. She nodded. The kiss was soft. He waited for her to say yes with her eyes. He took off her clothes slowly, carefully, like every part of her mattered. When she touched his shirt, he let her take it off. Their skin met quietly. He laid her down gently. When they were together, it wasn't fast or loud. It was soft and kind. He held her the whole time. He moved slowly, following her breath. He didn't rush. Every time he paused, he looked into her eyes like he wanted her to know she was special. Eilate didn't say much, but she held on tight, to the moment, to him, to the feeling that she was finally seen. His hands touched her like he cared. He matched her breath. He wanted her to feel safe. And she did. When she held his neck and kissed his shoulder, she whispered, "Don't let go." "I won't," he said. When she relaxed in his arms, she didn't wear any mask. She was just late. Later, she slipped out of bed. Matteo was still asleep. He looked so peaceful it made her chest ache. She got dressed and held her coat like it could protect her. The night had been perfect, and that scared her. No one had ever made her feel like she mattered this much. Like her heart was more important than her body. She grabbed her bag and shoes. No note. No goodbye. She didn't want him to see the look that said, "If I stay, I might believe I deserve this." She left before the city woke up. By the time the sun rose, she was already halfway home. 3 days passed, no texts, no calls, no driver, just quiet. But the silence didn't feel cold. It felt like he was giving her space. She kept busy, cleaned the kitchen, helped her mom, answered the phone every time, hoping it was him. It never was, but her heart beat faster every time she heard footsteps. On the fourth night, someone knocked. Easlate opened the door. Matteo stood there with red tulips. No big words, no drama. "Hi," he said. Easlate leaned on the door. "Took you long enough." He didn't smile. "I wanted to make sure you weren't running away for real." She let him in. The house was quiet. He didn't sit down. He stood in front of her. "I'm not here to fix anything," he said. "Just to understand." Eilate crossed her arms, still unsure. "Why now? Why come back if you were ready to let me go?" "I wasn't letting you go," Matteo said. "I was giving you a choice you aren't used to having." She looked at him. "You made me feel seen," she said. "Not just accepted, but really seen, and that scared me." "I figured," Matteo said. "I didn't leave because of you," she said. "I left because of me." Matteo stepped closer. Not too close, just enough. "It's okay to be scared, Eilate," he said. "You just don't have to be scared alone." "Absolutely. I'll rewrite the passage to keep the emotional connection, the sense of intimacy, vulnerability, and power shift between Isla and Matteo, but in a more subtle, respectful way that aligns with content guidelines. Here's the revised version. Isla felt a lump in her throat. She said, "I don't know how to be with someone who doesn't want to control me." Matteo looked at her gently and said, "I don't want to control you. I want to be your partner." Her eyes shimmered with tears, but none fell. "You want a baby? I don't even know what I want anymore." "Then let's figure it out together," Matteo said. "Not because you need help or I do, but because we shouldn't pretend we don't care." They stood in silence. It wasn't heavy, just full of truth. Isla finally took a deep breath. "You make me feel safe. I don't know what to do with that." Matteo nodded. "That's called comfort. I haven't had much of it either. I can't promise forever, but I can give you now, and I'll be here." She looked at him, waiting for something to go wrong like it always had, but he gave her nothing to fear. "Say I let you stay," she said. "Say I let this continue. What happens when life gets messy and I don't have the answers?" "Then I'll be the one asking the questions. We'll figure it out together," he replied softly. Isla leaned on the counter, arms loose at her sides. "No control, no rules, no promises," Matteo said. Just two people doing their best. She nodded slowly. Okay. He didn't move toward her, didn't reach for her hand. He just stayed still and waited. When she stepped forward and rested her forehead on his chest, it wasn't surrender. It was trust. There were no guarantees. Just presence. Just presence. And for once, that was enough. The air shifted. Words stopped, but everything was understood. Hila looked up and kissed him. This time it wasn't tentative. It was certain. She reached for him like she knew what she wanted. She had let go of fear. Matteo responded without hesitation. His hands moved gently, learning her again. He guided her back slightly, but she reversed it and pressed him to the wall instead. I'm not fragile, she said against his lips. Don't treat me like I'll break. I wasn't sure what you needed, he whispered. This, she said, sliding his coat from his shoulders. But is it real? He asked. She didn't answer with words. She showed him, with her eyes, her closeness, the steadiness in her touch. When he motioned toward the couch, she shook her head. Not somewhere soft. They moved together with urgency. She reached for his belt, her expression steady and clear. The kitchen was quiet, except for them, breathing, moving, choosing each other. Don't hold back, she said. I don't need careful. I need truth. He paused only to listen. Tell me what you want, Isla, he said. She stepped closer, lifting her shirt, her voice steady. I want to feel like I matter, not as a possession, as a choice. His hand hovered at her waist. Say it again. I want to feel chosen. That was all he needed. He lifted her gently onto the counter. The cold didn't bother her. She was focused, grounded. She reached for him, pulling him close. He kissed her neck softly. No worship, just want. He looked at her, still searching for consent in her gaze. She nodded, steady. She held onto the edge of the counter and him. Don't hesitate, she whispered. Just be with me. He kissed her deeply, fully. He leaned down and everything between them turned electric. Her fingers curled in his hair. Her breath quickened. She let herself feel, fully and without fear. Her voice trembled. She called his name. He stood and turned her gently. His voice was quiet but firm. Still want control? She looked back at him and smiled. I want all of you. Their movements were both wild and tender. It felt like speaking without words, an answer to the questions in her heart. Her voice shook again. Don't stop. I won't, he promised, holding her close. She turned her head slightly and whispered, You're still looking at me? I've never looked away. And she believed him. He held not just her body, but her fear, her trust, her hope. When it was over, they stayed wrapped in silence, warm and breathless. She turned to him and he reached for a towel, his touch careful, his gaze steady. She didn't stop him, she just watched. This man had loved her fully without taking anything. She held his face and kissed him softly. I see you too, she said. He smiled like it finally meant something. 1 year later, Isla stood in front of a red brick building in Flatbush, Brooklyn. A new bronze sign was being put up. It said the Viola Davy Foundation. Below it were the words, helping with dignity, health, and choice. Inside, people were getting ready for a big event. Volunteers set up chairs, leaders read their speeches, news crews set up cameras. Isla wasn't just a face for the foundation. She was the heart. She wrote the grants, hired the workers, and picked the partners. This wasn't just a job. It was her dream, built from her past and her strength. Matteo stood beside her, sleeves rolled up, holding a clipboard. He wasn't there to be famous. He was there to help. They weren't married yet, but their names were together on all the papers. They made every big decision as a team. Isla didn't move to a fancy part of town. Even though Matteo offered her a big house, she stayed in Brooklyn. She fixed up her old place, made a nice office, and stayed close to the people she grew up with. She wasn't trying to leave where she came from. She was building something better. People in her neighborhood didn't call her CEO. They called her Miss Isla, or just B. They trusted her because she remembered their names and faces. She didn't act different. She walked the same, talked the same, and always looked people in the eyes. Viola, her mom, was back too. Not just walking, but living. She grew herbs on the roof and ran groups for caregivers. She didn't follow a script. She just shared love, laughs, and truth. She told a reporter once, "Don't call me amazing. Call me thankful and tired of seeing black women ignored." She laughed big again. And when she teased Isla or Mateo, everyone saw it as love. She didn't call Mateo her son-in-law. She called him that man with sense. Mateo still ran his company. He worked hard and smart. But now, 3 days a week, he worked at the foundation. No fancy office, just a laptop and big ideas. He respected Ila's leadership. He knew when to speak and when to listen, when to give help and when to stay quiet. On Fridays, he cooked dinner for Viola. On Sundays, he and Ila sat on the steps with coffee and talked about life. He didn't stay because she needed him. He stayed because he needed this life, not the riches, not the power. Her. When the ribbon-cutting ceremony started, the room was full, not with rich people, but with nurses, helpers, students, and mothers who knew Isla. She stood in a pretty blue dress. A gold pin with her mom's initials was on her chest. She didn't need a paper. She spoke from her heart. "My mom taught me that dignity isn't something people give you," she said. "You protect it. You live it. And when you've been through a lot, you make a place where others can feel it too." People clapped loudly, but Isla didn't feel small anymore. She stood proud. Mateo didn't sit in front. He stood in the back, hands in his pockets, watching her with quiet love. Someone next to him asked, "Is that your wife?" He smiled. Not yet. But it was clear she was everything to him. After the speeches and photos, Isla went outside for some air. Mateo met her by the garden next to the building. In his arms was their baby girl, wrapped in a yellow blanket, a pink headband on her tiny head. Isla held her close. The baby made a soft sound and rested her head on Isla's chest. "Look at her," Isla whispered. "She doesn't even know how much she changed our lives." Mateo stood behind them, one hand on Isla's hip, the other gently touching the baby's curls. They didn't say much. They didn't have to. On that Brooklyn sidewalk in front of a building named after her mom, Isla was more than someone who had survived hard times. She was a mom, a partner, a leader. Everything that had tried to break her was now behind her. So let me ask you, what does dignity mean? Is it holding on when life is hard? Is it leaving survival behind when love finally shows up? Or is it building something beautiful, even when it's scary? If this story touched your heart, please like this video. It helps more people find stories that matter. Comment below, what would you have done if you were Isla? And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, Fiction of Peace, for more powerful stories every week.